Hey guys, you're with me Anuradha from learningmilestone.com, and in this tutorial we'll be creating distance converter through Tkinter library in Python. Now what is special about this tutorial is I'll also be introducing you to Tkinter and its very basic window and widgets. And as we move forward in this series, we will learn more and more about Tkinter, and at the same time, we'll create useful applications of different complexities. So let's get started with distance converter. So first we need to see how it will work once it is finally created, and let me show you. As you can see, it is a very simple application, right? And there is a window and there are widgets on the window. And what are the widgets? Widgets are anything which helps us to get the service done through this window. They can be in the form of labels like meter, feet, or entry widget where user can enter the information, or button which can help us to get an action done by clicking it. Alright, so this is a very simple application. And as we can expect out of it, when I enter meter and I click on calculate button, it will give me the output, right? If I enter another meter, it will give me another output in terms of feet. So now to create this application, if you're a beginner and you have never been to have opened any Python editor, that's perfectly fine. You can create your login in online editor, a very popular editor called REPL.com. And there you can get started by clicking on create and choosing the language as Python and distance converter, or whatever name you want to suggest, and click on create REPL. So here in this area where it says main.py, you will be able to type your code. So if I say print hello and I click on run button, it will show me the output over here. So in case you want to create simple Tkinter application, you can create on REPL UI just to get quickly started. And if you already have a editor like I have PyCharm or any editor, you can get started there too. The beauty is this, you do not need to install anything special over here because Tkinter comes inbuilt with Python standard library. So let's get started. So you can use anything, REPL editor or any Python editor. If you are using online editor REPL for free, it is little bit slower in case of user interface applications, and so I'll be showcasing my things on my PyCharm. So I have created a new project. I'll be creating new file, so I'll just name it as main. Now to create this application, first we have to import Tkinter. Perfect. And then we have to create main window. Make sure you also type these comments with me because it will make things clearer and better for your next applications. So create main window. It's like we are creating a template. So main window can be created with root is equal to Tkinter dot tk. So we are using tk class to create main window, and if I run it, I'll not be able to see any window. And to see the main window, we need to do one thing at the end, which is run main loop. And how we run main loop? Using root, the window which we has created, main loop. And let's see what we get. Alright, so we are able to see main window only when we ran this main loop method. And eventually what this main loop method is doing, it is supposed to run this root window until we click on cross button, and also to listen to any activities going on any widget like entry or button, right? So in every script we will have these things fixed. Okay, so whenever you start any new application, these things are to be there. So the next part which we will leave right now is for creating variables, which we are not creating right now, but we'll use this section to create variables. The next part is to create functions. So as we saw in calculate button, when we clicked on calculate button, some certain action was happening, right? And that action is happening through the functions, which we will define in this section. And the next part is to create layout. Okay, so there are two parts of Tkinter application. One is when what you have on the window, right? Labels, widget and all, right? But how can we make it alive? By using functions. So right now we will be creating layout, that is the body of the Tkinter application in this section. So let's notice this carefully again. We are importing Tkinter, creating main window, running the main loop at the end, and there is a section for creating variables, and then there is a section for creating functions, and then create layout. And now let's create layout. Now whenever you want to create any layout, either just draw, I mean, for the sake of simplicity, just draw it in paper, all right? Or you can have a wireframe. And to do this to create this application specifically, or the applications which I am telling, you can directly go to my website link, where I'll be giving link of this tutorial and the other tutorials to redirect you to code and wireframe. You can use mine. But to start with any application, you can just have it on paper pen, okay? But you need to have a map of it so that you can easily know what widgets you want to use and where you want to place them. Now creating layout again has two parts. So one part is creating the widget and the second part is placing the widget. So let's first create the widgets. So to have this, we need to have two meter label and feet label, and then meter entry widget and feet label, which will be blank text. Okay, so let's first create our first widget in Tkinter, which is called label. Okay, and what is widget? Widget is anything on this main window which helps us to interact with the application and get our service done. So label widget is the simplest widget, where we simply has to display a text. Okay, so let's create it. To create any widget, first we will name it meter underscore label. Okay, whatever name you can have, a simplest name will also do. Let's say I do m underscore label equal to, and what we want to use is the label class from Tkinter. And when we instantiate the label class from Tkinter and we are creating an object meter underscore label, we have to pass certain values. Some of them are optional, but the important one which needs to be always there is where we are creating this label. So right now we are creating the label on root window, obviously you will think, but then there can be a children for this root, like for example frame, which we'll come to know later, where we can create the meter label. So which is the direct master of this widget is root right now. And what text this label widget needs, a text which we can pass to it. So what text we want to have on it? Meter, right? Similarly, let's say I want to have entry widget after that, right? So meter underscore entry, and here I'll be using Tkinter dot entry class. Okay, and again it needs one mandatory parameter, which is which is the master of this widget. Now if we run, and also let's say we want feet label equal to Tkinter dot label, and we want to create it on root, and text is equal to feet, right? And then we also want to have one more label where we'll be displaying the value of feet. Okay, so feet is equal to val, and we'll keep it as label with empty value. Tkinter dot label dot, and then root text is equal to empty. Now, and then we had one more thing, which is calculate button, and it uses button class. It's very simple, right? So button is just another label which is, but it is interactive, and we can call it an action when we click on it. So button underscore calculate is equal to Tkinter dot button, and first thing the direct master, then the text on this is calculate, and we have one more thing in this command. Okay, so command is what action needs to be called when this button is clicked. So right now we have not created any function, but we'll create it. So let's say I want to call a function calculate. Okay, so I need to create this function here. So right now I'll just create a blank function, and just mark it as pass. Okay, so this function will be called when I click on this button. Now you have to notice that like a regular calling of function, there is no circular brackets in front of the calculate function calling in case of Tkinter. Okay, so let's run it, and I hope to see widgets. Oops, it is nothing, right? And if you remember, I said there are two parts while creating layout. One is defining the widgets and the other is placing the widgets. Now placing the widgets is part of geometry manager, something called geometry manager, right? So geometry managers help to place the widgets and give us control where we want to place the widgets. And there are different kinds of geometry manager, and we'll see two of them one by one. First we will use one geometry manager, which is pack. Let's see how it works. So we have these widgets and we want to place them on the window, right? Meter underscore label, and first geometry manager which I'm using is pack, and then I have meter underscore entry. So we'll just pack them all without passing any further parameters in the pack. Pack can take different parameters, but right now we are keeping it as simple as possible. So feet underscore label dot pack, let's pack them all. Feet underscore val dot pack, and button underscore calculate dot pack. So I hope to see these widgets on the window now. So if I run this window, I'm able to see widgets. Not in a perfect manner, of course. It just by pack we have these widgets stacked on top of each other by default and in the center of the window. Okay, and we will definitely make them better, but first thing which I want to fix is this, that I want to have this window in the center whenever I click run button. Okay, and for that, although it does not matter if it is opening in the center, but just for the comfort factor, so for that I have to use window root.eval, and here I'll use double quotes Tkinter, then double colon. I have place window and space dot space center. So I have to use tk.place. Okay, fine. So if I run this, I have this opening in the center, and I'm just figuring out whether I want to just make this window better looking, window layout better, or should I make this functional first, because right now if I click on enter this value and click on calculate button, I don't get any output, right? So let's first make this functional and then we'll work on the looking aspect. Okay, placing the widgets more nicely in a controlled manner. We'll do that in little bit time, but let's first make this calculate button functional. So we are calling with the help of command calculate function without parentheses, right? And let's work on calculate button. So what this calculate button is supposed to do, it is supposed to fetch the value from this entry field, whatever user enters, and then apply some formula to calculate, convert meter into feet, and then display it over here. That's all it is supposed to do. So let's do that one by one. So first, to fetch the value from this calculate button, this entry field, right, which is defined as m_entry, we have to do m_entry dot get, right? And we can store this value in some variable. All right, and let's print it. If I run it, whatever value I enter over here and I click on calculate button, that displays on the terminal, right? Now we have to apply the formula to convert that value into feet. And what's that formula like? So let's see on internet what is a formula to convert meter to feet, right? And I have this value that 1 meter is equal to 3.280 something, and I'll just copy that and I'll say whatever is the meter value, multiply it with this number and you'll get the feet value. And let's print it first before displaying it on the interface, f_val. And let's run it and see if we are really able to print the feet value. So I click on calculate, but I get error. Okay, I get an error which says can't multiply a sequence by a non-int of type float. So we are multiplying two things over here, m_value and a float value, right? So clearly this m_value is a culprit, and we can also see print type, and if we just run it again and I just type something and click on calculate, I'll definitely get this error. But before that, I'll also get the type of m_val, right, which is string, and we cannot multiply a string. That is the value which we are fetching from the entry field is of type string, and definitely we cannot multiply a string with a float. So while we get it from entry, we can convert it into float type. Okay, and I hope it should work now. So if I do 10 and I click on calculate, I do get the value, right? Now our next task is not to print it on console, but display it over here, right? And to display it over here, all we have to do is change the value of the property of this value, this label feet_label, and here right now our text is empty and we have to update this text. So to change the property of any widget later on, we use config. Okay, so how do we use that? ft_val.config, and what property we want to update is text, and with what? With f_val, right? And let's see, if I run it and I enter 11, I click on calculate, I'll get the value over here. Perfect, right? One thing is to notice is function is to be defined before the creation of these widgets, so that when we are calling function over here, right, a function won't be called if you're defining it anyways after the widget. But let's say we define the function over here after the creation of these label and entry widget. Our function will not identify these widgets. Okay, so just be careful about that. And I think we have created one functional UI. So far so good, but it is from users, I mean, look and feel perspective, it's not that great. And within pack, let's just explore the option what we can do to make it better. And before even coming to pack, let's make the window better, right? This window better. And let's see what we can do about it. So let's run it again and see that this window can be stretched, right? And then we can also have a customized title for this window. Let's see how we can address these two. So first thing is to give any different title of your choice to window. Simply have root.title, and I have distance converter, right? And the other point is how can I make my window fixed. Okay, so we have a title distance converter, but I don't want to stretch my window. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just do root dot resizable, and here I'll pass 0, 0. So if I just don't want to stretch it in X direction, I'll just say 0, and in Y direction also then 0. Otherwise, wherever I want to stretch, I can set the value as 1. So right now it cannot be stretched in any direction. How about giving some color to this window, right? So what we can do, we can define a variable root underscore color. Okay, you can directly give that too, but let's define with the help of variable to make the things better. So you can give color name, you can search on internet Tkinter color names, or you can give hex codes as well, which we will see at some point later. So root underscore color. So if I have to reconfigure my root, right, I have to update its properties. So I'll say root dot config bg is equal to root color. Okay, and if we see, this makes our window more visible because our labels are having background color which is not same as root color. So let's change their color as well while we define them. So here we can give one more property while defining the layout. PG is equal to root color, right? So I'll just update them all and see. Of course, I did wish to say set the BG color for entry, so I'll just set it again like this. Perfect. Now how about changing the font over here? All right, so let's do that. So again, I'll go to create variable section and I'll define the font over here. I can directly provide the font without defining variable, but this is standard practice to keep your font neat and clean. So we can give font in different manner, like font name, font size and all, or we can define them as a tuple, which I'll do right now. So in tuple, I can give the name of the font, let's say size of the font, and in case I want to have different style, bold or italic, I can give that. Okay, so now where can I add this font? While defining the widget itself using font property. So I'll just copy this. Alright, so let's see. Perfect. I don't want them bold. I'll just remove this property. Okay, and in case you want to reduce the size, that's okay too. Okay, now the next immediate problem which I can see on this interface is this: these widgets are directly, especially this entry field, they are sticking in their X direction to the right and left side of the window, and then this calculate button is sticking to the bottom. Okay, and what we can do to achieve this is with the help of something called padding. Okay, so padding is something like a pathway around your house, right? You create the space or a garden around your house which creates a space around the widget. Okay, and so to fix that we have to go to pack, where we are placing the widgets, and there we can supply the option of padding. Now padding can be supplied in terms of X and Y direction, right? So if I give pad X, let's see it more visibly in entry field. If I give pad X is equal to 10, right? So I get the space around left and right of the widget entry. Okay, and if I just want to give only in one direction, I can also do with the help of tuple. Okay, let's see, like this, right? So by default it creates it in both the direction. So I'll give some pad X over here. I don't know if I need it or not, but let's do it. So pad X, right? And if I run it, here we have this pad X. Okay, now what else I need is this the space between in the Y direction, right? So what I can do, I will give pad Y is equal to 10. Now okay, let's see what does it do. So I'll just do pad Y everywhere, run it. So see here the distance is just 10, but here it will add up to be 20 because I have given pad Y on the top of this and bottom of this as well, and so I don't want that. For this I just want on the top and not at the bottom, and similarly for this I just want at the top and not the bottom. So I'll supply it with the help of tuple. Except calculate button, right, where I want both at the top and the bottom. So these values can be changed as per your choice, right, the space you want to achieve. So let's run it. So this is why this space is there, because we have not set the label. Feet label will update only when the value is there, or if you want you can give some BG color over here. BG is equal to, let's say, black. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry, I have to give black over here, and that should be in quotes. So let's run it. Okay, so now you can see, right? So if I enter anything 11, calculate, all right, so there is a problem. I have given just a top padding Y in calculate button, so I'll just have it like this. Okay, perfect. So if I give 23, calculate, oh, I know what is the problem. I have not, my font, I have given background color as black and my font is also black. So here in FG I can give FG for foreground, and let's say I give it white. Okay, so let's say I enter 1 2 3, calculate, and here you go. So I know the UI is not still great and not as the one which you wanted to achieve, and calculate button you can just remove the background color, you don't need it, and right. So but to have them better controlled we need another geometry manager, which is Grid Geometry Manager. So we want our application to be precisely like this, so that we have more controlled look on the interface, where we have meter placed, label placed in front of entry, and similarly feet label placed in front of this value label, and then calculate buttons spanned across both feet and the values, right? Both label and the values. Now what we should be doing for this kind of look, we need to use another kind of geometry manager, which is called grid geometry manager, and it gives us better control. Now as you can understand, or as you can make out from the word grid, right? Grid is something which you can compare to Excel, and where, like, suppose this is your application, right? It gives you freedom to place the widget across rows and columns based on their number. So the starting column is 0 and the starting row is 0 again, and then if you have something here, right, that is row 0 column 0, then, and if you want to say that row 1 column 1, then something would be placed over here, right? In case of label, let's say we have row 0 column 0, then we have entry widget over here, which is row 0 and column 1, right? So you have a better control over where to place what grid. So let's apply the same thing. So instead of pack, what I'll simply do, I'll replace all the packs with grid. Here you go. Now when you see grid, just grid won't help, you have to specify column, right? So what about if we are not specifying column? Let's see. Cannot use geometry manager pack inside, which already, okay, so we are using grid. Okay, so the important point over here is, if we have used one geometry manager in one master window, we can only use that geometry manager, be it grid or pack. So that's why the error was there. So let's run it. So you see, by default we get a look which we got in pack, right? And why? Because by default the columns stay 0 while rows increase. So that is row 0 column 0, row 1 column 0, and so on, right? Now how can we make changes? By specifying additional property row and column, right? So row is equal to 0, column is equal to 0 for label meter. Similarly, let me just paste it across, and then I'll just change the rows and columns. All right, so we have entry stays in row 0, but the column changes. Similarly, for feet label, we have row change and column is 0, right? And then they are in the same row, and the column changes for the feet value. For the button, we have next row, button is in next row, so column 2, let's keep it column 0, and let's see what changes we have on our interface. So we have something like this, better, right? Just one thing which can still be fixed with this interface is this calculate button, which seems to be lying down in this left most part of the interface, just because it is in row 2 and column 0, and column 0 is this, right? First of all, I would like it to span across both the columns, and we do have option in grid to span a widget across the column just by using column span option. Span, okay, and I want it to span across 2 columns. So if I run it again, here you go, it is in the center. Now if you really want it to be stretched across, what you need to do about it? You can use sticky, okay? And how does a sticky work? Let's see. I've taken this picture from internet itself to explain sticky. So let's say this is your calculate button, and it has this much of space available in the placement area, right? It's cell, right? So by default it will be placed in the center of whatever area it is available to it, and it can be moved to these different areas with the help of sticky. So let's say I give sticky is equal to east. Okay, so oops, east. Okay, so if I see the change over here, my button will shift this side. If I give west, it will shift this side, right? And by default it is in the center. What about if I wanted to stretch it from west to east? Simply I have to give west to east sticky. Okay, and this works. So this is our final application, and this is how it looks. I know there can be many things which can be done and improved in this, but then we have many more chances through our next tutorial and through new applications which we will be working upon and learning new concepts and implementing them. Just stay tuned and subscribe to my channel. And what I will suggest at this point, to practice similar application, maybe temperature converter, where you are going to convert a temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and all you have to do is just use create similar kind of application and use different formula, and just not, why not try at your end. Meanwhile, I'll see you in next tutorial where I'll be creating a new application which is password generator.